All right, and we are going live. I believe we are live. Yo, 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 tell me what you know. Welcome to the Sunshine Show. Woo! Tonight, I have a very special guest for you guys in the house. I have the one and only, the most amazing, the most fabulous, the most Bowie of them all. I have Autry Fulbright in the house. Autry, how are you doing tonight?
How are you?
I'm
nice
good.
To meet you. Nice to see everybody.
It's very nice to meet you. I've been very excited about this interview tonight. I've done a lot of research and I'm very excited to talk to you. I know that art is a huge passion of yours, and my son just graduated from Otis College of Art and Science, and I know you're in LA too.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So for the people that may not know who you are, could you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Well, my name is Autry Fulbright. I'm from Los Angeles, California, where I lived for the majority of my life from birth to my teenage years. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, met up with some musicians, some of them being amongst the members of And You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead and TV on the Radio, which both groups informed and guided me in my next move, which was New York, specifically Williamsburg, where members of both bands ended up moving in around 2005 or 6 was when some members of Trail of Dead moved there, and the guys from TV on the Radio had been there for some time already from various places. And both groups were very important in my early days of pursuing music and art. I ended up joining And You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead. In 2010, I became an official member. I think 2008 or 9 is when we started creating music together under various monikers and iterations of creating projects. And then I moved into a house, or a loft rather, that was formerly the residence of some members of TV on the Radio, which kind of guided me in a very significant way as I started to become involved in music in Brooklyn, started to go on tour, and eventually ended up back in Austin, which I believe you have a connection in Austin, right?
Yes. Yeah, I used to live there, and I worked at the Capital Area Food Bank for many years, and Tracy and Trina are my best friends in the world.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I love them.
And true story, TNT over here are named after Tracy and Trina.
Wow.
Yeah,
amazing.
and we met in Corpus Christi because the girls are actually from Corpus and then moved to Austin.
Yeah, that's really nice. We'll tell them I said hello if you see or hear from them anytime soon. So I met a lot of great people when I moved from New York to Austin, Texas, and eventually became a full-time musician, and traveled quite a bit all over the world touring with Trail of Dead. And after several years, I moved back to LA and wanted to pursue music. I wanted to get involved in other aspects of the music industry. And I was always interested in one of my first loves, which was creative direction and being involved with visual aspects of music. So eventually, I met up with a company, and the owner of the company, the leader of it, who turned me on to Flying Lotus and Thundercat. I got an opportunity to travel with them for many years, and through that, I ended up working with them on different creative projects. A lot of creating merchandise with them, creating different video assets, doing ads with them, creating DJ booths for Flying Lotus, just collaborating in any way I could. I'm definitely passionate about music and art, and especially in all the cities that I have lived in, LA, New York, Atlanta, Austin. There's so many amazing microcosmic scenes. There's so many cool artists there, both visual, musical. There's a lot that you're able to accomplish if you just look outside your window, honestly, in any cities, probably not just limited to the ones that I've lived in, but literally any city has a nice little scene that I feel like you can get tapped in and connected with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. I want to expand a little bit more on each project, but I want to check the chat really quick. We have Don, Scott, Isaac, Paul. Jeff is saying Trail of Dead rules. Paul from Colorado. We have the whole fam bam. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will get to them. So TV, oh my God, I'm so high. I'm sorry. I was like smoking a blunt before we got online. What was the name of the band again?
TV well, there's Trail of Dead that I was in, and then TV on the Radio were just some friends of mine who I ran into after a show. I believe I was planning on moving to New York around 2005, 2006. And I ran into a member in East Atlanta, and he was like, oh, you should just take my number if you're planning on moving to New York. Then I ran into another couple members later on that night with my girlfriend. They had a night off. I believe they were on tour with 9 Inch Nails. And I was like, well, what are you guys doing tonight? Because I was, at that time, one thing I've always appreciated about many musicians is there's no hierarchy, or there's no separation between a fan or someone that appreciates music, or an aspiring musician, and someone who has quote unquote made it, or is a touring musician, a popular musician. I think that's the way it should always be, where there's that connection and engagement that doesn't seem too, forced or awkward. It's nice that musicians can, under most circumstances, there's definitely exceptions to the rule, but can reach out and speak to, fans or people that appreciate their music. So we ended up hanging out that night, and one of the members said, hey, if you go to New York, you can move into the loft where we started the band. And an engineer by the name of Chris Cody, who worked on a lot of the TV on the Radio records, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Beach House, like you name it. He's like, you can record with him. I think he kind of recruited Chris, unbeknownst to Chris, that he would be working with my band at the time. So I finally made it to New York with my girlfriend a couple months later, met Chris. He did indeed record a record. In fact, he ended up joining the band and playing bass on tour for a while.
That's so cool.
I just ran into him. It's funny, just a few months ago, I was in New York and I ran into Chris at the airport. Chris Cody is a renowned engineer who now lives in LA, because there's a lot of people from New York who've subsequently moved to LA and stayed in the music scene. Tunde from TV on the Radio lives about a block or two away as well. I live in Silver Lake, a part of, definitely the art and music scene in LA. So I'm in the airport in New York, waiting to go back to LA. Just had seen my girlfriend play a show at the Bowery Ballroom maybe a couple nights before.
Play too?
She also plays. She also works with me, like in art direction. We play music together. I prefer to play with people that I love, people that are my friends, people I care about, not just, creatively, not just for money, but definitely that I have a vested personal interest in. More on that later, but definitely that is something that's consistent with all of the artists that I work with. So I noticed Chris is there, and he's like, hey, I'm on this row in this flight. I'm like, we are literally sitting next to each other from New York to LA, when 15 years ago we were put together in a recording situation and ended up becoming friends, and have stayed friends ever since. So it's nice to have that sense of community with that community in Brooklyn that has now moved over to LA. Trail of Dead are still very close friends of mine. They recorded with Chris Cody. We did a record called Tao of the Dead with him maybe about 10, 12 years ago. It's starting to get a little hazy as time passes on. I've played on a lot of records, but Chris definitely has had a hand in several of them. And now I still work with Flying Lotus and Thundercat in like management and a lot of like creative projects. And I'm in a band called Off. And when I first joined Trail of Dead, It was right when we were recording Dow the Dead. We'd finished recording part of the record with Chris Cody. And we had a layover. We were playing one of my first shows as a full-time member of the band. We were playing in Beijing. And we had like an 8-hour layover in LA. So I had flown from New York, my home at the time, to Austin to do like a photo shoot, meet up with the band and rehearse. And then we were flying to Beijing, but it was by way of LA. We had an 8-hour layover. And at the time, Sonic Youth and Pavement were playing at the Hollywood Bowl. And a guy named Dimitri Coates, who was a guitarist, band leader of Off, was like, come to the show. So that's when I first met Dimitri years ago. And I loved Off so much. I would always wear an Off hat. Like I went on tour with Trail Dead for like over a year. And you see a lot of press photos of me wearing this Off hat, like everywhere I went. I love that hat. And at the time, a very rare occasion for me, I had short hair, that a hat would actually fit on my head, which is not the case now. Still have the hat, no longer have the hair for it. So maybe 2 years ago, it's coming up on 2 years, Off needed a bassist. And at the time, I was really busy working with Flying Lotus and Thundercat. I'd stopped playing with Trail of Dead. I felt like my time had come playing loud rock music, and I just wanted to like do like creative direction and work with other artists that I really liked. But sure enough, I was recruited to play bass with Off. And we just finished our record, which happens to feature Off's new drummer, Justin Brown, who also plays with Thundercat. Wow. So that has gone all full circle. Like pretty much everything in my life revolves in this little universe of friends of mine, you know, and people that I collaborate with, kind of revolving in this like little cosmos.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's like a lot for me to like wrap my head around because I've loved Flying Lotus for so long. I know you do the design for the DJ booths. Is that?
Yeah. A few years ago, after a tour, when I was tour managing Flying Lotus, I had a slightly different role in the management team. We were going to Tokyo for like a one-off, and Flying Lotus
dude, like
recently.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like no. You're just throwing out names like Beijing and, you know, Tokyo, and it just like blows my mind because like these are like places that like it's like for a lot of people just like dream like to go there, and like you're going on tour and like playing music and like living your dream and making art. Oh my God, congratulations on all your success.
Well, thank you. It's funny because it's definitely a different perspective when one is actually doing it, but I'm just so privileged that my friends have consistently taken a chance on me and brought me along. I always say that like I just have the best seat in the house for some of my favorite bands that I play in, like whether I'm working on a creative or management level with like Thundercat or Flying Lotus, or whether I'm playing shows with Trail of Dead. Like those are some of the best shows I've ever seen, is just being stage right, you know, seeing my friends do their thing on stage. I just happen to be, you know, part of the equation with that. But ultimately, like I've been very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to travel with a lot of legendary artists, people that are legends, if not in my mind, definitely like with other people as well, you know. And I feel like it's definitely been a privilege. It's not always what it looks like outwardly. There's still a lot of work, and I feel like any job or anything that's worth anything has aspects that are not quite as glamorous or fun. There's tedium involved, there's annoyance, there's frustration, there's self-doubt. But ultimately, it is a privilege to be able to like work on cool creative projects with my friends. And ultimately, I know that I threw a lot because I do a lot of work and a broad spectrum creative in music and art. But when people ask me like what I do, I can sum it up with that I just do cool shit with my friends. That's all I do. And that's all that I want to do.
Living the life. I love that so much. And talking about friends, we have Tracy in the chat. She says, hi, Sunshine. Hi, Autry. Love you. Tracy, you'll have to rewind to the beginning to hear about the story I told Autry Um, let's see. I had a few questions here for you. Kovac, Sunshine, you talk slow, speed it up a bit. Do I really? Okay, sorry. Um, oh, Trina's in the house. What's up, Trina?
Hi.
Oh my God, I love you so much. So what's your favorite rig to play when you play with Off or in the studio?
I play pretty much, no matter who I'm playing with, I play a discontinued model of Fender Dimension. And it's a bass I really like. It's an offset bass. I love Fender. Fender has definitely provided me with some amazing instruments over the years. I have a Fender Bass 6 that I use a lot. It's like a bass guitar, like an actual, like, lower octave 6-string bass guitar that I use to write with. But a Fender Dimension bass is my primary bass for anything that I play. And then a Fender Precision bass I use when I'm not using the Dimension. But I have a bunch of Fender basses. Those are just the ones by order of preference and import in my sound.
So are you endorsed by Fender?
Fender does definitely hook me up. I wouldn't say it's a formal endorsement. I would just say that they've been very kind to me and don't make me pay for any gear. And I try to take photos only with Fender stuff, and I just it's my preference, and they've definitely been happy to give me things when I graciously, humbly ask for them.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about the last music video that you did with Off.
Yes.
Okay, so it's like a whole damn movie.
It is. People have said that the intro is longer than the actual song.
But it's so cool. So did you have a part of that creative aspect in the video? Was that somebody else's idea? Like, how did it come?
To a degree, like I said, like Dimitri, from Off, who invited us to go see, Pavement and Sonic Youth, eventually asked me to join the band, and we needed a drummer. We were specifically in a hurry to find a drummer because Metallica had requested us to be a part of this project called the Blacklist, Metallica Blacklist. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's where Metallica asked all of these different musicians to cover different songs from the Black Album. And there's like Pharrell is on there, and like Kamasi Washington, and there's just a lot of amazing artists. It's like a 5 LP long compilation of people doing covers. And between me, Keith, and Dimitri, I think we all agreed to do Holier Than Thou. And that song in particular resonated with me. And the idea for the video kind of sprung out of the fact that I grew up very religious. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. I was like an ordained minister. I lived at their world headquarters before me being a musician.
Autry.
Yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah, before I was a full-time musician and roused about in Brooklyn, and had my travels in music and art, I was a full-time minister living on the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses in upstate New York. So that's a whole other story. That's a whole other life.
What?
So the idea of doing a song or video that had these religious overtones and mentioned religious hypocrisy and all that was this would be a great idea if we did a video in a church where the church band, and eventually the team, the production team, the director really ran with a very basic idea of us being this weird band is at the wrong church gig for sure, you know what I mean? And but that definitely kind of still stuck with the end story, is that we're just trying to be a band with a gig, and it ends up going into an incredibly different place.
Oh my God. Now it looked like you guys were on a full movie set. It looked like there was a lot of money put into this project. Where did you guys film it at?
We filmed it at this church. You know what? It's somewhere in California, I think in North Hollywood. I don't even sadly remember when we were there, what the church was. But Metallica was definitely supportive. because this was part of their project and promotion for their compilation to, provide resources to make that happen. So thankfully with Off, joining this band, since Keith has such a great history of, being the original singer of Black Flag, being the still current singer of Circle Jerks, there's a lot of groups and companies that have provided like support, moral as well as financial, for us to make cool stuff. So fortunately, we have that on our side.
Wow, holy shit. So I mean, is this like big like sets like that? Are you just kind of used to it, or does it feel different every time you go on a different set that's like a big production like this?
I mean, it just depends, because I have a life where I'm working with artists, like in management. So it's a different context for me if I'm on set with another artist that I work with than if I'm, actually a performer or a musician. So it just kind of takes it case by case, honestly. Like it's definitely unique with each instance, with each performance, or with each situation. And thankfully I get to have a pretty varied experience when it comes to being in that situation. So I'm just very thankful that I'm able to like experience it kind of all over again each time.
Dude, so fucking cool. Okay, thank you guys all in the chat. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your questions. Jeff wants to know, Autry, what's your favorite place that you have played and why?
I think so far there's several, but I'd say so far Sao Paulo is one of my favorite places. That was the last two Trail of Dead shows that I played in July of 2019 were in Sao Paulo. And it was a nice like bookend to my entire life being on tour with Trail of Dead, to play in a place with a really cool audience, with a really appreciative crowd, with a few people that had Off shirts on that before I even joined the band, like a year later, which is funny because I remember taking pictures with them and sending them to Dimitri, being like, people love your band there, not knowing that I would join the band a year later. But Sao Paulo is really cool. It's always nice to be at a place outside of the United States. Berlin is a place that I really like a lot. I've always had a lot of fun shows there. But also just, New York City is kind of a great place to play as well. So I'd say of all time though, most recently, Sao Paulo really was very significant to me because it was kind of the end of an era.
You are just a full world traveler. Oh my God, that's so cool. Is there a place that, a destination that you still want to go visit that you haven't been to yet?
I have never been to India. I've never been to Johannesburg, South Africa. I've never been to Cairo. So I think it would be cool to go, check out Africa, check out some of the places that I've never been. And also, post-pandemic, it's nice to just revisit certain places. I'm planning on going to Thailand in a few weeks. I'm, would love to just go back to some of the places that I've already been to that maybe just, through a different lens now.
Wow, so cool. When I worked at the food bank, I had a friend there and she moved to India and she like couch surfed for a year, and then she met the love of her life and now she lives there in India and has like little babies and shit. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fucking crazy. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Ricky, Steven, Jeff, Paul, Don, Trina, Tracy, Hovac. I love you guys. Thank you all. Scott. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about how you transitioned from the music into the art, although art was probably always a huge part of your life, right?
Yeah, when I was a kid, even as I was growing up in a very religious household, I always wanted to play bass in a punk band. And I always wanted to do like creative direction. I wanted to like oversee visual, art projects. And that's eventually what I ended up, doing for sure. And that I'm very grateful that I have that opportunity to pursue that and to continue to be involved, to this day. I think they go hand in hand when you think about it. Like, almost every record has album artwork, has insert with photography or, visual art. There's music videos, that hopefully support like, a single or an album. So I think it's pretty easy to see the connection between the visual and the oral for sure. So I think that it was just a natural progression for me being involved and passionate about music that I want to be involved in every aspect of it. So I think that's kind of how it worked out, especially going to Tokyo with Flying Lotus that first time. Normally he would have this custom DJ booth that would travel around the States and we were on tour, but it was way too expensive to travel with that for one show in Tokyo. So on the flight there, I was like, well, we can't just go to Tokyo and just have like a normal, like skirted DJ table or something. I was just like, this can't be like Olive Garden. Like, my name is Flying Lotus. I'll be your DJ for the evening. How can I help you? So I was like, let me create something. So I just went to a few different shops and bought a bunch of, random stuff that I could like stick together and paint white so it could be, projected onto with Lotus's DJs. And the pandemic kind of actually allowed me a further opportunity to keep doing that. I started doing a couple other ones, one for Bonobo at the LA Theater, and then I did a couple others for Lotus. But during the pandemic, when they were just live streaming, I had the opportunity to create these set pieces, these DJ booths that were able to be streamed, online, even though they weren't shows. There were still performances, and I was able to create something different. And Lotus joked, he's like, well, the precedent's been set. We have to do a different one pretty much every time now, which we've had quite a few. I think I've done about 11 for them. The most recent one for Lotus was at Carnegie Hall in February.
What?
And, yeah.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
And I never knew that would end up happening, that I just keep creating them. And then I did one for an artist named Dochi last week, like more of an installation and not a DJ booth. But DJ booths are cool because it's such a direct connection to the art, like doing a set piece for the musician to either perform behind or create a world that the musician is in while they're performing. I think is very important for me. It's cool to do like experiential like art. It's cool to do like museum pieces or photo moments, but creating something that the artist can actually use like as part of their performance definitely connects the art, the visual art with the music.
So Jeff is commenting, Autry is such an awesome bass player. I have to agree with you, Jeff, on that one.
Oh, thank you. I'm still learning. I'm still practicing every day. I'm still discovering the instrument, and that's the cool thing. When you're around someone like Thundercat, you know that you can always be better. No matter how good you are, you can still be better. You cannot be better than him, but you could definitely be better than what you already are doing for sure. So thank you. I'm still practicing.
I feel like I've watched that NPR with the Mac Miller and Thundercat, just that one song that they do together, and it's just like so beautiful, and it's like mind-blowing. So where do you get the ideas for the art? Is it just something that comes from the music that you listen to? Is it just spontaneous, or
there's been different themes that I've had. Like there was one that I was inspired by Neo Tokyo in the anime or Japanimation Akira. So there's certain things that I'll take that might be, special or influential to the artist that I'm creating for. And it's kind of a nod to their world to create this kind of fortress for them. Speaking of which, like the Fortress of Solitude from Superman was another kind of source of inspiration for one DJ booth. I like doing series where it's either flora or fauna. I've done a lot of work where I try to combine biological with mechanical elements. So creating like machines that also have something involving usually like plants. I like working with like, faux plants a lot, foliage. I like, doing stuff that's kind of psychedelic. that feels like a weird dreamscape. I think ultimately I try to do whatever I can in the period of time that I have. And I think the biggest inspiration and influence on any of my work is how much time I have to get it done. Because sometimes too much time is kind of dangerous because you start second guessing yourself. But if I get called to do something and it's like 3 days before, which has happened several times recently, then I just have to immediately commit to an idea, immediately speak with the artist or speak with my team, and we just do it. And it's done by the time I have a chance to, tell myself that I shouldn't have done it. So ultimately, it's cool to just have the luxury of time, but actually it's a benefit to have parameters in a short period of time to execute.
What is the like shortest amount of time that you've ever had to work with?
I definitely remember doing a DJ booth where I had to have it done by like 6 p.m. At like an 11 a.m. My assistant called in sick. So I had like 6 hours to create an entire DJ booth from scratch, including buying everything I needed for it. But it worked out.
It's like under pressure, sometimes we do so much better, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. Jeremy Hill says you should check out Neo Genesis Eva.
Okay.
Not sure what that is. Maybe art or something. You can expand in the comments there.
I will look it up.
Did Autry ever write songs with Conrad, the singer, guitar player in Trail of Dead? And if so, what is his favorite song? He's a huge fan.
We wrote a lot of songs together. I think one of my favorite songs was from an album called Lost Songs. We wrote a song called Awestruck. That's a song that I play guitar and he plays bass. If you're a fan of Trail of Dead, you know that there's a revolving cast of people that play in different instruments. Conrad and Jason often switch between guitar and drums, but in this instance, I played guitar on the song. Conrad played bass. But that record was largely collaborative, and Conrad and I, along with Jason and Jamie, who Jamie now plays with Bad Religion, we all wrote a lot of cool things on that record. And that's probably my favorite record that we did. It's coming up on the 10-year anniversary of it this fall, which is kind of crazy. Wow. But yeah, Awestruck was great. Lost Songs from that same album was cool. And I think Up to Infinity, maybe 3 of my favorite songs we did on that record. But we wrote quite a bit.
Very nice. We have Elias in the chat. Hi, Sunshine. Hi, Autry. What's up?
Hello.
So can we talk a little bit about your like management duties with Thundercat? Like what exactly your role is?
Yeah, I work for a management company called Really Happening, and among other artists, they manage Cinematic Orchestra, Flying Lotus, and Thundercat. So I originally started off working in tour management and then moved over to artist coordinating and creative marketing. So I oversee a lot of the creative projects, both live projects, merch campaigns, like advertising, museum, projects, just basically any creative visual project. I have a hand in a lot of that, overseeing a lot of designers, working with people to design new merchandise, basically communicating the different ideas that Thunder, Lotus, and Cinematic have to different artists, and just creating cool, whether it's merch, whether it's installations, something that has to do with any artist to fan engagement.
Wow. And so what about his wardrobe?
Lotus and Thunder are G's when it comes to their own wardrobe. So we definitely speak about merchandise. Thunder and Lotus definitely are very clear about how they like their merchandise, what kind of, down to the fabrics that are used. So, I have conversations like all the time. I've got like swatches in my house right now, different fabrics and, different designs that we go over. But ultimately, Thunder and Lotus, I feel like, are very fashion minded, and they have consistently showed up to the party, whatever the party may be. I do remember being on tour. Actually, there's been a couple times where I've showed up, maybe been shopping with either one of them, and they've picked out a suit and said, "That's your suit," and I ended up walking out wearing it. Like Lotus, there was a suit maybe 3 years ago, and maybe a few months ago, we all bought suits to go down to Mexico. And when I showed up to the spot, Thunder was like, "This one's yours," and I was like, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is mine. This is great." So they're definitely amazing when it comes to their own fashion, and they're not bad with styling other people too.
Dude, so I saw the picture when you guys were at the Grammys, because Thundercat did win a Grammy in 2021, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And Lotus did too, because he produced that album.
Oh wow, that is so fucking cool. And you guys were all wearing like the mariachi outfits, right?
Oh, that was not at the Grammys. There's another picture of the Chateau Marmont where we're hanging out, after Thunder's Grammy win, Thunder and Lotus's Grammy win. And I'm just wearing an all white outfit, which is the same thing that I'm wearing. I'm wearing an all white outfit with the mariachi suits. That's when we were in Mexico just in January for Wilco's Sky Blue Sky Festival. And that I remember going to Casa del Mariachi and Thunder being like, "Found your suit." And I just put it on, and it was a perfect fit. He could eyeball it and tell that was the one for me.
So he's also a PFA, a personal fashion assistant.
I would say he assists no one but himself. I would say that he definitely just keeps a good eye out for his homies, but I would definitely be slow to say he assists in doing anything but being a badass.
Oh my God, that's so cool. You were so humble and kind, and just thank you for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. It's really cool to hang out with you.
Oh, thanks. And I'd love to know more. I know that you're an amazing bass player as well. You play a Rickenbacker, am I right?
I do, yeah.
Cool, yeah.
I have two Rickenbackers, a 75 and a 76. Both of them are 4,001s.
Wow. I've only played a Rick like once.
They're like an acquired taste.
Mm. Well, I'm happy with where I'm at, but I appreciate anyone that could lay it down. It seems like you do.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We got my mama in the house. What's up, Mama Cantu? I've been
Hello.
waiting. Jeff asks, Autry, what were some of your favorite influences growing up and now?
I think it's still pretty consistent. I love let's see, Carol Kay. She's bass player. And Carol Kay, I'm sure, Sunshine.
Oh yeah.
She's one of the most influential bass players and probably the most heard bass player ever. She played on a lot of Beach Boys tunes, a lot of old Motown stuff. She was part of the world famous Wrecking Crew. Yeah. I also there was a band called Unwound from Olympia, Washington. That was consistently, everyone in Trail of Dead loved Unwound. Unwound had my favorite drummer, Sarah Lund, who's an amazing drummer outside of Olympia, Washington. I was always a big fan of the Minutemen. The reason why I have a black flag tattoo is because the artist who created the black flag bars also created all the Minutemen's artwork. His name is Raymond Pettibone, and he's the artist for Off. Okay. So it's great that I happen to have definitely been able to, appreciate his work for the past 30 plus years. And now he has definitely inspired me and continues to blow my mind with the work that he does with the band that I'm in. So yeah, I would say that there's also different directors that are very inspiring too, not just musicians. I'd say Alejandro Jodorowsky has been someone that I've really loved. I love Basquiat's work, visually as a visual artist. Most of my favorite bass players are badass women, like Michelle May from The Makeup, Kira Russler from Black Flag. I could go on and on when it comes to that, but Carol Kay is the queen. She's number one.
The OG, baby, the OG. Yeah. Let's see. Jeff says, I am in Olympia. They are friends of mine. He is referring to Unwound.
Amazing. Cool. Well, Any fan of Unwound, I definitely know that Olympia is one of my favorite cities, with Kill Rock Stars being a very important like label for my upbringing, for my youth. And yeah, working on a project with Kill Rock Stars right now, which is really cool, that I can't talk about, but it's definitely awesome. And I'm happy that someone from Olympia is here to represent.
So where do you find the time for your busy schedule? Like, it seems like you have so many things going on.
I think everyone just has the same 24 hours in a day. I think that mine is filled to the brim with a lot of cool projects, and I don't necessarily think about it in terms of how tedious or time consuming they are, because they're all things I enjoy.
Oh my God. And what advice would you give people that maybe feel overwhelmed and feel like they may want to like give up on their project they've been working so hard on?
I think there is a balance. If sometimes something is too hard, you might be able to recognize that another door could be opened. There's some things that take a lot of hard work, but it's also something where you should enjoy your life as much as possible and enjoy the process as much as possible. And if you're not getting any enjoyment, or if you're getting too frustrated, there are so many things that you can pursue. There's so many like gifts that we have that we may not even know about. So there's that balance of like working hard and overcoming like, obstacles, dealing with adversity, not being quick to give up. But there's also the enjoyment that you have to get out of life, and the importance of feeling good about what you're doing. And I think that that's an important thing to remember too. And everybody wants to say like, oh, like you gotta like work really hard, and it's not gonna be easy. It's like, well, yeah, but sometimes in this world, especially with all this outside, like, external problems and pressures, some things should be fun. Some things should be easy. Some things should be affirming. And that's important to remember too. Like to really try to do what you enjoy and what you feel you're good at, because you need all the confidence you can get.
Yeah. What could you tell us, like maybe one of the hardest obstacles that you had to overcome to get where you are today?
Oh, myself, I feel like everyone is their own greatest obstacle. I think that like definitely being kind to yourself, being a friend to yourself, and your biggest cheerleader is very important, because I think only yourself can really hold you back. And it often does everything in its power to hold oneself back. I think I still will always struggle with that. I think it's important to try to just be kind and patient with yourself. And that will often be made manifest to how you treat others too. So I think it's important to start from within, and then everything else kind of falls into place.
That is great advice. I hope everybody writes that down, puts it up on their wall, and reads it every morning when they wake up, because it's important to manifest things, and it is important to be happy, and you've got to be kind to yourself first and foremost. And I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Autry, I know that you worked on, or this may be your complete project, a museum in Austin, right?
Yeah, I did. It's called the Museum of the Future Present.
Awesome.
Like a visual representation of a lot of musicians that I work with.
So was this just an idea you and your team had, and you like put it together, from like just a thought you had, or?
Yeah, it kind of maybe sprang from me creating DJ booths and elevated experiences with some of the artists that I work with, and wanting to have some sort of visual complement that immerses people in the world of all the artists that I in particular work with. I'd love to expand it eventually and continue to do it in different cities and different places. But it's the same thing that we were talking about previously, about how important it is for me to keep the connection between the visual world and the musical world. And for people not just to reduce music to like a compressed MP3 or just a groove on a vinyl record. It's like the whole story. It's the videos, it's the album artwork, the liner notes, like everything tells a story. And it's cool to be able to tell the complete story with visuals as well as music, especially in a time when, you know, for the past couple of years, people globally have not been able to enjoy the same experience that they had previously with receiving art from people. So to have an opportunity to do something a little bit different, the fact that we had a break and we're now able to maybe offer even more to people that really love music, that love art, I think is important to continue to try to do something that's more immersive, that puts people in a different world, that allows them to escape, that allows them to be immersed in the things that they love.
So is it still open in Austin?
Yeah, it ran kind of typical gallery museum style for about 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Now I'm working on another project in LA and one in overseas. So I want to continue just providing, a space for artists to engage with their fans in different places.
God, that is so cool. Congratulations once again on all your success. I know that it wasn't luck. It was a lot of hard work to get where you are today. And man, you really look like you are living the dream over there in LA. So do you visit Austin much? Do you travel back and forth?
I did quite a bit during the project, and then Thundercat and Shabazz Palaces, another artist I work with, just played there around Halloween. So I was there for that. Right now, I spend a lot of time in New York, where I have a secondary residence. So just going back and forth. Hopefully, staying in LA as much as I can, because it's going to be quite a busy year, both for Flying Lotus, Thundercat, Cinematic Orchestra, Off. Like everything that I'm doing has quite a full plate for the rest of the year. So I'm hoping to be in LA to kind of oversee all of those things.
How fun. So do you think you'll tour anytime soon?
I will, yeah. Off will be performing. I guess it hasn't been announced yet, but we'll be performing at a similar situation as Thundercat did last year, around the same time as Thundercat did last year. So we're going to be touring for the record. Our record comes out sometime this year as well. So I'm trying to be careful not to spill the beans and reveal things that should be formally, announced or whatever they have to do in that giant beast called the music industry that I'm a part of. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of plans to do things like that this year.
Wow. Oh my God. So do you have somebody that manages your schedule, or do you manage it all yourself?
I feel like I kind of work within the schedule of, I'm on a management team. So that's, and a lot of my schedule is based off of the artists that I work with or I perform with. So it's like kind of yes and no, So, but I definitely wake up to a lot of messages and emails and art to be approved and dates to look at, and I go to sleep to that too. So, but I have more time than I feel like people would think to kind of, take walks, meditate, cook, enjoy the process. There's definitely sharp burst of activity and then periods of calm too.
Oh my God, you're very well spoken. I must say, you're very well spoken.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I know you're super into movies, right? Is that a thing?
I think so. I like what I like, for sure. I don't think I'm necessarily a cinephile, but I enjoy specific directors. I enjoy certain eras and genres. So yes.
Could we get a top 3 movie choice from you, or recommendations?
Wow, it's hard to say. I really like The Dance of Reality by Jodorowsky. I definitely am a big fan of, I would say, actually it was an slightly obscure Steven Spielberg film in the 80s called Empire of the Sun. And it was Christian Bale's first film. He's 11 years old in it. And he plays a British expat living in, I believe he's living in China. And he ends up being in a internment camp. And it's a very interesting story about, a coming of age story that's in a unique setting. And of course, it's all the epic, tropes that Steven Spielberg has probably grown weary of, creating in his films. But in the 80s at his peak, when he had like E.T. and Indiana Jones, this is like peak Spielberg. And then I would also say that I like a lot of weird kind of shitty sci-fi films in the 80s. Simply because, and if you go on Amazon and if you look on the recommended section, you'll maybe like look up ET or you'll look up Star Wars and you'll have like the recommended if you like. And I look at the like crappy ones, those have the best set design. It's like you see that they probably like didn't spend very much on like the screenwriter or the director, but then they have like a really badass art director or something. And that's very influential. I feel like there's a lot of cool films that you just have to appreciate for, different reasons, for sure. And I think that's a film that I like. The Warriors is another classic that I love, obviously. But I like a lot of Jodorowsky films. I like David Lynch. I like Stanley Kubrick. I like all the like big directors and a lot of obscure ones as well.
How do you feel about Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
That would fall definitely within that genre of like, space exploitation films. And I think that's a classic.
I love that movie. And did you ever see Pink Flamingos?
I did.
Thoughts?
I would say that, it's an important film. I think as possibly offensive or grotesque as, without giving away too much, it's important for films like that to exist. It's important for an artist like John Waters to create the art that he creates along the same lines of Andy Warhol, of Kenneth Anger. Divine is a very important figure. So, I think as an icon, full stop, and as an LGBTQ plus icon as well. And I feel like regardless of how you feel about the film, there's certain things that you can look at objectively and say that is simply important for the history of cinema, the history of culture. And I feel like I personally love it. I love kind of to be shocked and maybe grossed out a little bit. I think that's important to have certain art that shocks you and kind of turns you off a little bit. Sometimes it's okay to do that.
Yes. And so for everybody that is watching at home, listening on the podcast, you too can have the same experience. Just look up Pink Flamingo by John Waters. I'm sure it's like on Amazon or something. I'm sure you can find it somewhere on the interweb.
And if it doesn't gross you out, check out Kuso by Flying Lotus, which is on Shudder. I'm definitely plugging something that also like is a little weird and grotesque, but I think it's very important and fun.
Autry, do you have a pre-show ritual?
Man, the last time I played a show last year, I like threw up. I feel like that's something that happens. It's not something that I want to do, but I still get nervous. I've been playing shows for like 20 plus years, and sometimes I still get so nervous that I throw up. So
oh my God.
Sometimes before, sometimes during, and sometimes after. But that's a weird thing that happens sometimes. I don't know. I have intense I don't know if it's focus or intense like performance, maybe performance anxiety. But that's something that happens. It's not necessarily a ritual, as it is a reflex that happens sometimes. Oh. Typically, like I just try to have a good time with my friends before a show. It's like I don't really like have any other ritual besides wanting to get into the zone of enjoying myself. But I feel like sometimes it goes a little left. But as long as I'm with my friends, I think that's all the courage that I need to play a show.
Oh, your friends are so blessed to have you in their lives. And
well, I feel that way about them for sure.
Dude, that's so fucking badass. You guys, we are coming up on an hour and I've had the best time. I have a few more questions and we're going to wrap it up. If you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. One question I ask all my guests is if you could throw a dinner party with any 5 musicians, dead or alive, who would they be and what would you serve at your dinner party?
5 musicians, dead or alive. I would say I'd choose for them to be alive. So that's the first choice. So
But
that'd
you
be
choose
5.
to be alive.
But if they're five, I would say I would love, honestly, you know what? I miss my bandmates in off. So I probably just want to it'd only be 5. I probably just want to have dinner with them right now.
Oh,
I want to have dinner with them and my girlfriend, probably. That's it. And we both cook.
Oh, what is your favorite thing to cook?
I like to make cassoulet, like a French like bean stew. I believe it's from the Languedoc region in France. And it's like white beans or cannellini beans with roasted duck, sausage, and it's like in this kind of like tomato sauce, like with caramelized onions and everything, and it's really rich. So
Ooh.
it was something that I did during the pandemic because I ended up cooking different like meals from different regions from France.
And what attracts you to do you just like French cuisine?
That's my favorite cuisine, probably to cook and probably to eat too.
It's
But
very
I don't really like Paris. That's one of my least favorite places to travel or perform.
it's very intense, like the cooking itself, like the steps and everything that it takes to get to the final dish, but it's very worth it, I feel like.
It is. It's just like any artistic endeavor, I think. And it's something that takes patience, focus, time. I think that it's kind of reflective of any creative endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. So Don says, so Clockwork Orange is a favorite of yours? Question mark.
You know what? I have found that I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, but there are certain parts of that film that I do find problematic. I think that as much as I enjoy a lot of the visual aspects of Clockwork Orange, and it's probably inspiring in certain aspects, there are certain scenes and subject matter that I don't necessarily agree with. So it's hard for me to really enjoy it maybe as much. Like I can step back and say like overall as a film and as Kubrick, vision was really, realized in that film. I still don't enjoy it as much as maybe like 2001 Space Odyssey or like The Shining. So
Sure.
Love the director, like the idea overall, but the film doesn't rub me the same way as it used to.
I don't think I've ever seen Clockwork Orange. I mean, maybe pieces. I don't know. I don't think I've seen it all the way through. What does my mom say? My mom says, I told Sunshine I wanted a pink flamingo float for the pool today.
Great. Did you grant her wish?
Well, she's in Texas. When she gets here to California, to Santa Cruz, I have a little pool for my pig. So if she is sharing the pool with the pig, I'll get her the pink flamingo float. Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right, Autry, man, I really appreciate your time tonight. I've had a blast. This hour flew by. Do you have any last words before we get going?
I don't. Just thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Make sure that you go follow Autry, go follow the band Off, and support this man and all things. How can we support you? Besides following the band, is there like, do you sell
honestly, like I'm pretty private when it comes to social media, so I'd say just check out Off. That's the band that I play in, and we'll be putting out a record this year, and maybe I'll catch you at a show of one of the other artists that I work with. But other than that, I guess the best way to support me is to support yourself and keep creating.
Oh my God, look at you. You are such a badass. Okay, guys, we are going to get out of here. Until next time, make sure that you stay kind. You never know the battles people are facing. Put a smile on your face, stay safe, and keep rocking and rolling. Bye, Autry. We'll talk to you later.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.